Well, good day, everybody. It's good to be back once again here. Welcome to the Mental Health Show. If this is your first time, we're glad to have you here, and knowing that we're talking about mental health and several episodes already to date. This is episode number 12. So if you haven't reviewed any of the previous shows, you can visit on our YouTube channel. We'll be sure to post that link as well. So as always, I say this every time, I've brought the experts to the table to have a conversation with what we're going to talk about. And this is a very important one. This is actually Bullying Awareness and Prevention Week. Along with coming up on Friday is National Child Day. And that might sound like very obvious what that's about. Obviously, it's about the children, but what specifically is that about? And to get started today, we're going to say hello to April Lepore, who's joining us from St. Clair Child and Youth Services. Thanks for being here, April.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. So I see a bunch of letters beside your name, and I don't know what that means. So can you tell myself and everybody what is your role here?
Yeah, so I work at St. Clair Child and Youth in the outreach program, and I'm a registered early childhood educator. So specializing in children 0 to 6, but in my role, I work with families, so from infants all the way up to adults. So specifically, what I do is go into geared to income neighborhoods in our community and provide support for families and run programs depending on what the needs are.
Very good. So you're busy.
Yes.
Great. And also joining us today, Leanne Sullivan from Chatham-Kent Children's Services. Thanks for being here, Leanne.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And same question. Tell everybody who you are. What's your role at KICS?
Hi. Well, I'm from Chatham-Kent Children's Service, and we are a multi-agency. So we have protection, mental health, and development under our umbrella there. We're kind of like a mall. We have stores. We all have our own store. So anyway, I would just share that administration costs. I am a child and family consultant, and I work with 0 to like newborn up to 5, 6 years old in developmental and mental health. And I have a background with child and youth worker, plus I've been registered as a psychotherapist, and I'm a play therapist for the mental health part. So the child and family consultants, we go into the child cares and service them and assist them in getting what they need for their classrooms and helping with anything that they're getting stuck on. And we have we do some in-home with families, just when they're getting stuck on some things with their little ones, because, parenting, you don't come with a manual.
You don't?
So you don't. And there's no training before you have that baby.
Right.
So anyway, it's sometimes you get a hiccup and they just need some help with that. Yeah. And we have a developmental, we have DSWs, they're a support program with us. And they're in the child cares, supporting the classrooms. So they're an extra set of hands. They're well educated, and I couldn't do my job without them. And I just have to give a shout out to the child cares because they're working hard with our little ones.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it really does take a team effort of the right people to get the positive outcome and results we're looking for, right? So
it sure does.
And kudos to both of you for what you're doing. And I know we don't have to go into detail, but I know your positions are looking a lot different right now with virtual, I guess I call it virtual reality. Virtual has become a reality, right? Yes. So and that has its challenges as well. But today we want to talk a little bit more about National Child Day. And as I said in the introduction, that obviously it's about children, but there's some real specifics. Leanne, maybe you want to start with what is National Child Day?
Well, let me just give you a little blurb on it. In regards to, in 1989, the United Nations adopted the Convention on the Rights of a Child. It states that all children and young people under the age of 18 have the right to grow up to reach their full potential and to get best start in life. Canada has celebrated National Child Day since 1991. And if you Google National Child's Day, you will see it through the Government of Canada. There's like 54 articles to read up to support this. I'm not reading them all.
No, you don't want to get into all of that? Yeah, it really is. Well, and it's the fact that the Government of Canada really steps in and supports this,
Yes.
and understands the importance of this, along with National Child Day as well. It's nice to have that support. But we're talking about, and you mentioned it there, the rights of children. I think most of us, probably old school anyway, always thought, well, you don't have any rights until you're 18 years old. You become an adult. You have no say. Or there used to be the old saying of children shall be seen and not heard. Whereas that's really backwards thinking, isn't it?
Yes.
So, April, let's come over to you. Maybe you can fill us in as to what are the rights of somebody who's under the age of 18 years old?
Yeah, like I'm really excited about this. Just having a document or having something that we can show children and teach children so that they can be seen and their voice can be heard. So basically, like all children and youth have the right to be protected. So protected from abuse, neglect, exploitation. They have the right to basic care like food and shelter. And the right to be heard. So to participate in decisions that affect them. And as kids learn these rights, I think it's going to help them feel a part of their community, a part of their family, being seen, being heard. And not only that, it's going to affect how they interact with others because they know other kids have these rights too. So I think that it's very positive. Yeah.
And I guess the information world, or the interweb, as we like to call it sometimes, has sort of educated children a little bit more than maybe when any of us were younger and we didn't have that direct access. So April, would you say they are more aware of their rights?
I think that kind of is part of our job too, because we want to let kids know that they have rights. We want to let parents know that their kids have rights, so that they're able to support that and ingrain that, and the kids will know.
Yeah, and it's certainly different in from different generations in the past is how we raise our children. So there's quite an education process that goes on there, as well as Leanne said. There's no manual, and we've heard that before. So thank you, because hey, I've used St. Clair Child and Youth Services myself, and for my family, I have no shame in saying that. It's been very important. So you are the manual, I guess, sometimes for people, I guess, at least, or the guidance of that manual.
And we need that support from others that have that. Like, we've got a lot of families that you've got like maybe parents together, single parents, and even grandparents now. And when you talk about the rights of maybe back when we were young, and now you've got those grandparents raising these little ones, and it's totally different.
What do you mean they have? You can't say that. You can't tell me, right? Well, that's what it is, really.
It's different. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now, there's some principles that go along with all of this.
Yes.
And I guess there's like 4 principles, Leanne, you want to talk about.
Yeah. And when we look at those principles, we want to look at non-discrimination with children, that it doesn't matter if they're a boy or girl, or if they're poor or rich, or what their religion is, language, or if they have special needs. All children have the rights. The best interest of the child is what we look at. Everything is for the best interest of that child, and the right to survive, for survival, life, and development for these children. You want the best that they can be. And participation. Children have the right to give their opinion in all matters that affect them, and to have their voice heard. Children's views should always be taken seriously now.
That's a really important point there. Taking it seriously, sometimes I think, and our lives get busy. We go, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever, and I don't think we don't necessarily mean to ignore it. It just life gets in the way, right? So how do we kind of adjust ourselves to all of this so that we're making sure we're listening, but we're also hearing?
Want to start, April?
Yeah. So I think that as parents, I'm looking at a parent role, just making sure that we take time to see our children and hear them. So making time for like intentional interactions. So sometimes what we think is nothing to that child, it's big, and they just need to express that and might not know how. So we are able to take some time, intentional time to acknowledge it, like to label those feelings, because they even say now for an adult we only know a handful of feelings. We're happy, sad, mad, but there's so many feelings, and the more emotion words that we can give children, the more they can understand what their body's going through, and then they can express it to us. So it's really important to give those words. Oh, it looks like you're very frustrated. It looks like that's annoying you, and letting that dialogue happen. So then kids are like, oh, yeah, I am frustrated. And then what's making you feel like that? So it's just really, and that one-on-one, like in today's world with all the technology, cell phones, they distract us so much you hear that ping and you're automatically turning. But what we really need is to tune in, take out some time to tune in. So even if it's like 15 minutes a day that you're just touching base, and even what was the best part of the day? What was the worst part of the day? Because that's going to open up some really good conversations.
Yeah. And sometimes we say, well, how are you feeling? Right. And they might say, well, I don't know. And it's like, well, what do you mean you don't know? Well, they don't know. We're still trying to figure that out. Right. So when we're talking, sorry, go ahead.
And as adults, we're modeling that, right, to them. And so as adults, we need to be using that language around feelings and that with them.
Yeah. And maybe not just say, their behavior, they're just being a kid. Well, yeah, but what is that?
Yes.
Right? We sort of excuse it by that, saying, oh, well, they're just being kids. Right. So, and when we're talking about these feelings or whatever, who's the best, support for this? Like, obviously you think right away children and grandparents, but who else?
So I think we're all in this together. Like, I don't know if you ever heard, like, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah,
it's so true. Yeah, it's so true, because the more positive interactions a child has, like, that's really going to help them, like, the view on how they see themselves and the world around them. So, the adults that they live with are who they're with the most. So it could be a mom, dad, grandparent, aunts, uncles, family, friends, but then it extends teachers, bus drivers, your server in the restaurant, that smile or wave. Kids are learning from that and picking those things up, and that's helping them learn about the world around them, and all those positives are what's going to make our kids grow and thrive.
I always say who you hang yourself around with, right? And that, and the environment, and right down to the restaurant that you go to, and what time of day you do things. So is that accurate to say that to the complete environment, right?
Yes, it is. And some of these children are coming to childcare like before school or after school. They start at 6 a.m. and may still be there at 6 p.m. They start their morning at the childcare, and then they move into school, and then they come back to the after school program until 6. So you've got lots of those people who are molding these children and, influencing them with them.
For sure. Now, okay, this is great. We can talk about what we need to do and what we should be doing, or some of us might be watching going, oh, I do that. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. But so how do we teach these skills? Like these, they say habits have to be created. And at a young age, this is really the habits that they're likely going to carry with them for a very long time, right? So how do we teach that?
Well, as Dr. Ross Green would say, he says children do well if they can. They really do. And so we work on a philosophy that all behavior, good or bad, comes from needs, and those would be safety, growth, and learning. So you have your safety needs. If you're in danger, you have your learning needs. It's your environment you're learning from. They're like little sponges. They take that all in. And around their growth needs, like if they're hungry or they need sleep, you see they demonstrate what they need through those. So you, as the adult, need to figure that out. because you're the one to make the environment going to work for them to get their needs met.
We got to figure it out. So
Yeah.
we
Well,
we
and
par- we parents rely again on services like you as well, because you're not
Yes.
just dealing with the children, you're dealing with the parents or
Yes.
whoever the adult is involved, right? So that's something that you also do, is counseling to the adult involved.
Yes, because we're like I said to April, we're like a vehicle or a tool for families, because we can come up with that information. It comes to our desk and we're filtering through it, and then we can give it out to them as they need it. But they need to hear that. Even as a parent myself, I need to replay that around in my head.
Yeah,
For sure. So it is not the easiest thing to raise children.
No.
And I think too, like, it's easy, like your academic needs, your child needs to learn these things in school, but sometimes we miss those emotional needs. So, I think as parents, or even like working with children, I always use dream boards, dream books, where I have like a board up or a book where kids could jot down their ideas, their interests, and then we shape the learning from there. Because really, the need to learn is innate in children. And instead of us trying to produce outcomes, I want you to learn this math problem, we should really provide experiences, because then the child can use their whole body, their whole senses, and whatever is lacking, that's what's going to come out for that child. Is it sensory? Is it being out in nature? Is it all those experiences? That's what's going to be like so inspirational to them, because it's their body, their choices, their interests, and us as a provider or a parent, we're supporting that and encouraging that. And sometimes just standing back and watching. Like, I learn from children every single day. Like you say, I'm the expert. Like, I have a lot of information, and I love every part of my job, but every single day a child teaches me something. I'm amazed. And it's just, I love it.
And
you can tell when you're talking about it as well there too. Yes, Leanne, with parents.
With parents too, sometimes it's not all about being in a recreational or something you got to pay for. Sometimes just going outside and laying out on that grass. Well, today would be a little snowy, but laying out on that grass and looking at the sky,
Yeah, showing them what's around, especially here in Sarnia-Lambton. There's so much to see, right? And there's a lot of beauty around as well. And but I like how April said about telling stories. I hope my grown children are watching, because they roll their eyes every time Dad tells a story. But it really does show life experience, been there. That's why I get it. And rather than just saying, you don't understand and I do because I'm older. And I guess a little bit of vulnerability on our part is not really a bad thing necessarily, right? So we have to, and the key word, mental health, and all of this as well. We need to recognize the mental health. And probably in every one of these podcasts, I've said, okay, but how do we recognize that this is a mental health issue, or there's something more going on? Like, again, you're the expert. You went to school for this. I didn't go to school for this. So how do we, parents or adults involved in the child's life, recognize that? Who wants to take that on?
I want to just, I'll start and say that April was talking about how we need to be listening to our little ones. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when they're having a tantrum or they're having an explosion, a big emotion, it's the parents that need to listen. You need to say, you look this mad, and you've got your hands going up and down, and to say to the child, I'm listening, I hear you, that made you this mad. And then have that dialogue that goes back and forth with them, because sometimes the parents might not have it right. And it may not be what is just happening in the moment. It may be something that happened yesterday that's triggered them to, so it's listening to those children.
Well, and that's goes back to a previous podcast of your beaker's full. So we've hit the volcano right now.
Yep.
Now let's try to figure out what ignited that in the first place, and then what allowed that to keep building, right? So that it finally got to that point where we don't want to move.
We're teaching how to feel better first and then talk, because that's another strategy that we use a lot, about feeling better first and teaching those little ones how they can self-regulate themselves So setting their environment up so they're able to go do that on their own, and then they'll grow into that as they get older. Like I have a teenager and I can say, go feel better. And she knows we're not talking until she's calmed down.
Right. So, go to your corners.
Yeah. Even me have to go to the corner.
Yeah, go to your corners, but then come back and deal with it probably sooner than later. Don't put it off, brush it under the carpet, so to speak. I guess there's a lot of challenges, in all of this for sure. In this world of where we are now, how's the response been? And I ask this on every podcast because everybody's dealing with different things. How's your response been from those that you're still dealing with, having to do things virtually and handle, I guess, access to the resources?
Yeah, our services have changed quite a bit. Our services really are grassroots. We are in the neighborhoods, in their neighborhoods, being welcomed in by families. So not being able to do that is a big change because like we all know, like relationships are the heart of who we are. Like we all need those relationships and connections. And so really like for the outreach program, looking at ways that we can still connect. So during this pandemic, we have really tried to do neighborhood walks. So where the staff are still out walking in the neighborhood and talking to people who are outside, connecting that way. We've started a closed Facebook page where we can share resources and parents can write there and get responses from me or get responses from other parents. So I have really enjoyed that. Like it's been very dynamic just to see that kind of connections happening. Like if it's going to be technology, let's try to use the best technology we can. And, we've been doing mailbox deliveries. It's always nice to get a surprise in your mailbox to brighten your day. We've been doing family kits. So maybe an activity kit that they can do with their family, and then they can post a picture to show how they use the materials. We've had a ton of businesses step up and donate family meals. So we've been doing fun family challenges, like keeping people active and excited and looking forward to something good happening instead of focusing on something bad, like what's going on. And it's so easy to get caught up in that fear and worry. So it's important to be able to provide some hope for some good things happening. So really trying to be creative and, there's so much virtual with school and things like that. So it's like we want to offer some other resources as well, but still stay connected.
It really has forced us to be creative, right? That's a good point. And which is a good thing. I always say sometimes we get in our comfy chair and we get a little lazy, not intentionally. We get comfortable with our routine, and then that sort of stops us from stepping out of that box, our comfort zone, all those things, and then being creative. Because I don't call it the pandemic. I call it someday. Someday I'm going to do this. Well, someday showed up. And now we got it right. Now we got to do all those things. And it seems to be, and I've talked to people in the community, it really seems to be well received what you're doing, and that positive side of it. It's always been easier to be negative than positive because positive requires effort. We have a saying, in our home, like, well, thanks, Captain Obvious. Like when you say something silly or negative, right? Well, thanks, Captain Obvious. What about the other side of that coin, right? So, and it's very common to say, but I think the importance of just knowing one is not alone.
That's right.
And someone is, because we have trouble asking for help. I talk about this a lot too, that we don't like asking for help.
No.
Because then we feel, silly or not educated or embarrassed. And really, there's so many people using the services and that need the help. So when you reach out to them, that's really got to make them, I imagine the reaction you get is like, wow, somebody's thinking of me. Are you getting that?
Yeah. And I think that it's, sorry.
No, I just think
it's reciprocal. So I might be offering help to somebody, like a family, but they help me as well. Like last night I called 3 families and I said, I'm doing this podcast on National Child Day. Are you interested in coloring some pictures for me? And so this is what I got.
That's awesome.
last minute, but they're excited to help me as well. So it's not one-sided. And that's why that relationship piece is so important, because as we get to know each other, they help me, I help them, and it feels good for both of us.
Yeah.
That serve and return, right? Back and forth.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of us like to be asked for help, because if I say to you, hey, April, would you be able to help me with something? Firstly, I think you probably think, wow, he thinks enough of me to ask me for help. And usually the response is, well, I'll certainly try. I think most of us have that in us, rather than the other way around. So that's great.
And before you go on, some of the work that I do, usually, like if I'm with a family, sometimes they used to come into the office, but through the summer and into the fall, we were seeing them in their backyard. So that was all new to me, because creating a space to do some mental health work, with these little ones, and using the outside environment was a whole different ball game. But it offered some new ways to deal with things with little ones, with their sensory and that. So that's been kind of interesting. Right. Now it's getting cooler, so we're going to be changing that up again. So.
Yeah, so you're constantly adapting to keep providing what we're talking about.
Because virtual for little kids is not always the easiest. They don't want to sit in front of the camera, and they're wanting to move and groove, and so.
I've been on some online meetings, and mom has a newborn, and the baby's in the meeting, and kicking and whatever. So there's. And if you had a dog barking right now, I'd be like, don't worry about it. Like, this is part of our world right now. So outside of these services though, because, maybe I've got an issue at 2:00 in the morning or 4:00 in the morning. I know there's a lot of different services, like we talk about Bounce Back Ontario, Kids Help Phone, etc. But outside of that, I think, April, you had something, or a gentleman in particular you wanted to mention, Mr. Chaz.
Yes. So Chaz Lewis, he is an early education specialist. And if he has a Facebook page, an Instagram, he does TikToks, and his information is just so fun and so real and so easy just to grasp. Like, when I listen to him, I say, that's it. Like, that's so easy. And, so as a parent, as a childcare educator, like, I love it. Like, it's so interactive, and he does workshops for parents and for daycare providers. And he just
makes it fun.
Yeah. So I highly recommend, like, if you are just looking for fun, first of all, for some fun, watch him. But then his messages, they hit home.
I checked out his Facebook, and his Instagram is probably the most popular of it all. I didn't get a chance to check out, but I got on Instagram and I was like, oh, I'm doing this, and this is pretty cool. And then I looked at my watch, and it was like 40 minutes later, because I had to keep looking at the next. Oh, hey, I got to go. Right. Yeah. So that's really what he is. So I can testify to the fact. He's a lot of fun. He's very engaging. And then his messages are just his messages are very creative, the way he goes about it too. And then you're like, oh, I'm still thinking about some of the stuff I read on him. So very effective for sure. Yeah. What about,
thinking outside of the box too. Sometimes it's not for little ones. Maybe it's not in kids that are school age. Maybe it's not just counseling that they need. Maybe there's recreational things. And so we offer All for Kids some subsidy for recreational, and that they just need to be part of something, right? A group, so that sometimes is enough to build them up and fit what they need, along with childcare subsidy. And in the early on, we like to support them because they offer the families quite a bit of support.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and let's be honest, that word counseling, it sounds boring.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to counseling. Yay.
Yeah.
So to be able to add that recreational side into it, and to make it, look forward to going to counseling or whatever, because there's still that, we talk about it every podcast for a reason. There's still that label, that stigma to, you go to counseling. And I think if obviously for confidentiality reasons, we never could, but if we could share, like, you might be surprised if you're going, your neighbor's likely going too. Everybody's got something going on, and we got to keep working on. I say stop that stigma. We got to keep working on it.
And I think
things
that
like this is what's helping with that.
Yeah, and you got to look at counseling as that there's somebody there that's the vehicle or the tool for what you need, because the work you're going to do in there is you're going to do the work, but they're just offering you some ways to relook at it, or to give you some new ideas.
Different perspectives, right?
That's
There's nothing wrong with a different perspective. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much. You're really doing fantastic things in the community. And before I let anybody go, I always like to make sure I'll go back. April, is there any final thoughts you want to put out there before we go?
Yeah, I just want to share one thing. It's something I use with the kids in my program. It's called a gem jar. So it's just like this. And I always use the analogy, if we have a lot of risk factors in our life, like if we live in low income, maybe we don't have access to healthy food, or all kinds of different risk factors in our life, our jar could be empty. So as we have interactions with kids, and it could be parents, it could be people out, they provide gem moments. So a gem is a genuine encounter moment. So I actually use gems that I give to my kids in my program. So it's a moment that maybe will cause a positive memory for that child. But the really cool thing is during those gem moments, there's like explosions in our brains. It's growing our brains. It's creating just resilience and positive pathways. So even in a program, I might have my gem jar and something happens, say, whoa, that's a gem moment, and start filling up my jar until it's full. And it's just, you could do it as a parent to have it there.
You're having a gem moment right now, I think.
I am. I'm so excited. I definitely need a little handful in there.
Oh, yes. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a nice visual, but it really is very meaningful. And it really does create a lot of positive and self-esteem for that child. And they can look at it and see it filling up. So I love it.
Thanks for sharing that, April. And thanks for being here today. Leanne, final thoughts from you?
Just want to say, like April said, it takes a village to raise children, and our villages are small with this pandemic. Don't want to get into that, but our villages are small. So please reach out to agencies like April's and mine to get that support. We offer free support, and just to give you a hand, just to get out there and not feel so isolated.
I'm glad you brought that up. These are free services. I think a lot of times too, people go, I know I don't have any money for this. And it's sooner might be free at the start. It's going to cost. It's free, folks. Take advantage of what is out there for sure.
Yeah.
And we're going to be posting the links along with this video. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook as well. So, and maybe share this video. Please share this video around. You never know who's going to see this video that is going to go, wow, I didn't even realize that was available. As I said to both of you, I'm kind of in this world as a talk show host. I learn a lot of things, and every time I just learn about a new service or something new happening. I learned about gem moments. I'm going to make myself a jar right now.
Awesome. Excellent.
Well, thank you, David.
You're welcome. And thank you again for what you're doing in our community, and keep it up. And folks, put your comments and your questions below in the description. Someone will get back to you at some point and respond, or you can go to their Facebook pages, send them messages. Again, we'll have all that information so that you can reach out to that. And we'll be back again likely next month with our next episode of the Mental Health Show. As always, I'm your host, David Burrows. It's been my pleasure again. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye for now.